If you can hear me okay, let me know. Maybe just, I don't know if there's anybody out there, but if you can, let me know. Um, my name is Peter Lahai. I am a volunteer on the Igniting Hope team. I did my third year with Steve Backlund last year, and my wife Melinda, you guys probably know very well. She works for Steve and is the Belief Trainers director. And Melinda and I have been so blessed to be able to um, work with Steve and Wendy with igniting marriages. And so, both Melinda and I just love Steve and Wendy so much and love what their marriage carries. And so, yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. And uh, hey, honey, can you hear me okay? I guess what I want to know is whether or not the audio is coming in okay. That would be my one question. Hi, Sherry. It's good to see you too. So, yeah, I've been invited to just share a little bit with you guys what's been going on in my life. But first, I thought it might be kind of fun to just share a few updates with what's going on with Igniting Hope. Um, First of all, Steve is doing a mentorship. Steve and Connie are both doing a mentorship, and Wendy, and it is extraordinarily powerful. Actually, I'm not quite sure if Wendy's doing it. I think it's just Steve and Connie. And hi, Rachel, and hey, Angela. And they did a round one, and it went so well that they're gonna do another round, and that starts January 15th, and it'll go to May 3rd. And there's two levels. There's a foundational level and an advanced level, and yeah, thanks so much for putting that up in the chat, Angela. It is the feedback we've gotten has just been so incredibly spectacular that they did it again. So it's just something if you're looking for. If you're looking for something like that in your life, a mentorship, really regarding leadership, Steve talks about the 8 pillars of leadership, and it's a fantastic mentorship program that he's put together. The other exciting news, which is really hot off the press, is that we're going to Igniting Hope is going to do another Igniting Marriages event. And we've done a few online conferences. We did an in-person conference recently in November. But what we're going to do this time is we're going to do a course. We're going to do a 6-week course. And at the end of that 6-week course is going to be a 2-day, all-day online conference. And that's going to run from May 31st to June 1st. And it hasn't been posted yet, but just if that's something that's on your heart is marriage and really wanting to take your marriage higher, then it's something we would love to speak into. We would love to just help and be a part of that journey. So yeah, my wife Melinda and I are just super excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of intentional connection between couples and participants who are participating, but also just between the various people that are going to be speaking as well. And so there's going to be a ton of prophetic ministry that's going to be occurring as well. So it's going to be super exciting. We're very excited about it, and so just be on the lookout for it. So yeah, I'm super excited to get to talk to you guys today. As these things go, right? Sometimes you're like, wow, Lord, what am I? What do you want to say? What do you want to say? What do you want me to say? And I didn't really have a lot until I was sitting in my office last week one day, and to give a little context, I'm in the middle of starting a business, and there have been seasons in that process where sometimes, for lack of saying it any other way, I feel alone. I feel a little bit all by myself, and I I was kind of like a little surprised God was bringing this up. I'm like, why are we bringing this up? This, you're kind of telling me I feel alone. And what he kind of brought up was, and we're going to unpack this a little bit, was that oftentimes the negative emotions that I had And whether they're negative emotions or even in the past before I was saved, when I would act out in a sinful way, they were attached to this sense of being alone. And so, what I want to talk about is about how, as I've been just, it prompted a lot of curiosity in me because I heard this and I was like, God, what are you saying? What do you mean? I don't get it. It's really what I said. And what it came down to was that the alone is a mindset, not a circumstance. Because I always thought, right, like I'm alone. I'm in my office alone. There's no one around me. I'm in my car. I'm alone. There's no one around me. You may be at home. You may be home just alone and no one's around you. And I just want to be clear, like what I'm not saying. I'm not putting this on other people. It's not other people's burdens to not make me feel alone, right? It's not Melinda's burden to make me feel not alone. It's not my coworker's burden to not make me feel alone. It's it's not a burden on other people because it's a mindset. It's a mindset, it's not a circumstance. And I wanted to unpack that a little bit. And I look back in my life and I grew up I grew up in Berkeley, California, right, land of the hippies. And I, some of you guys may know my story, but my mother was an alcoholic and my dad traveled a lot as a child. I spent a lot of time with, when we think of the word alone, I spent a lot of time being alone. Just, I was kind of by myself. I was in my room, my sister was in her room. My mom oftentimes was just like asleep, and my dad was gone. And so I never knew, like, I just thought that's what alone is. And, and then I start going to school and I go and I go to undergrad and I go to graduate school. And there's this thing about just like studying. And a lot of times, like, you're just alone. You're just doing that alone. It's me and my book. Hey, Tamara. It's, me and my book, and I'm just like studying and I'm just doing stuff, right? Or even me at work, right? But it is that sense of believing that my circumstances, I'm all alone, I'm all by myself. And it starts to foster this mentality of it's all up to me. It's all up to me. This is what, I got to do it. And so I started looking at scripture, right? Scripture is a great great place to look because I'm in this dialogue with God, right? And I'm like, so God, what is the truth? What's going on? And it starts off, hey Denise, it just starts off like right away, right in Genesis 2, and he says, it's not good for man that he should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him, right? And hey, Rob. And so thank you for God for creating women. I thank you for Melinda, what has been such a blessing, and she has been more than a helper in my life. But I mean, what a great verse, right? And then in 1 Corinthians 7:5, he says, do not deprive one another, except perhaps for agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self control. I mean, wow, right? Because that's kind of like what it is. It's sometimes in those moments. And I look back at my life, you know, um, before I was a believer, and it's when I'm alone, I get tempted. I get tempted to. I did bad things in the past. I sinned, and even now, that's when I usually partner with these negative beliefs. So when I'm in my office and I'm doing this business thing, I'm thinking like, oh no, maybe this isn't going to work. We're not going to go anywhere. This is a waste of time. What if it doesn't work? Then what am I going to do? All these negative emotions, this temptation to buy into all these things because I'm by myself. And again, it's not a burden on anyone else to come in and not make me feel alone, but it's the belief that I'm alone rather than agreeing with the circumstance that I'm all alone. So, as I started to kind of pray more about God, I was like, all right, well, let's look into like the actual words, and just bear with me if this gets a little bit I don't know, literary. So the word alone, it's defined as unaccompanied, solitary, and without companions. Right? That makes sense. And it's an adjective, and so it's a describing word. And but the question is, what is it describing? Is it describing our circumstance or is it describing our belief? So I'm just going to ask that again. Alone is an adjective, so it's a describing word. So I ask myself, what is it describing? My circumstance or my belief? Now, the word alone is made up of actually two words. One is all, meaning everything, all, right? Um, uh, in the entirety. And the other one meaning one, meaning being but single unit or individual. So what we have here now is we have this word all and we have this alone. Hey, Lisa. And and essentially what we have is we have this describing word, this adjective, and we have this noun, right? So so then I was like, okay, that's great. That's what it means in the dictionary. But let's go to the word of God, right? Let's go to this thing and find out like what does this word alone mean? And it's really funny because in the Hebrew, you can find out a little bit more about it. And there's two main words for the word alone. One is yashid, and the other one is ashad. And in Deuteronomy 6:4, it says, "Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our God. Yahweh is one." And that word one, remember we talked about alone, all in one. That word one is ashad, okay? And what it means in the Hebrew is unified one, unified one. So when I read that, I was like, okay, unified. Unified with who? So God is so essentially what it says is Yahweh is the unified one. Well, who's he unified with, right? In Genesis 2:24, it says, two shall become one flesh. That's another one. That's Ishad, okay? That's another Ishad word. So the only other time, or the other Hebrew word for alone, yeshid, it means like a solitary oneness, right? So it really means kind of like by yourself, kind of like what we think about when we think of what I was talking about before about just feeling all alone. And it's never used ever. It's not. It's just not used in the Old Testament in reference to God. So God is obviously can never be alone. And so then the question is if it means that unified, who's he with? So what's the point? What am I getting at with all this? So if God is never alone and he's always unified, and we ask the question, who's he unified with? He's unified with you and me. He's always unified with you and me. So now I get this, and I'm like, wow, that's good news. I like to hear that. I like to hear that when I'm having those moments where I'm like, I don't know, just where it's true. It's the enemy comes in and tries to plant these thoughts, like while I'm all by myself. And so I started thinking about Elijah, right? I love that dude, and it's funny. So we go into like 1 Kings, right? It starts in 1 Kings 17, and he hears from the Lord regarding the famine. And then you move forward a little bit, into this. So then so Ahab is the king during this time period, and he's the king of Israel, and all the Israelites are just in a bad place, and they're worshiping Baal, and they have all these prophets that are basically encouraging it, and Jezebel, who's the wife of Ahab, is essentially fostering this whole idea by having dinner with them and just kind of hanging out. So, um, so so Elijah gets this download from God. I mean, God is speaking to Elijah, and he goes out and then he essentially kills all these false prophets. Okay, so Jezebel catches word of it, and she basically then tells her messenger, and she goes, "Tell Elijah that what he did to the prophets, my gods will do to him." Okay, and Elijah basically panics. Okay, and he runs off and he goes and he just hangs out under a tree, and he's just praying and he's telling God. But what I love and then after that he goes to a cave. What I love this is in 1 Kings 19:10, and he says, "So he said, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword." And then he says, "I alone am left, and they seek and they seek to take my life. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life." Here's a guy who's a prophet, the prophet of Israel, and hears very, very clearly from the Lord. And he has this moment of panic under a tree all by himself, and he says, "I alone am left, and they seek my life," and basically everything is just kind of ending. And I just found it fascinating that here is this guy who, when you look at like kind of like throughout the story of Elijah, when he comes in to tell Ahab, essentially just to prophesy over this guy, everybody like just knows him. They know him as this amazing prophet. And here is a prophet who says, "I'm alone." He says, "I'm alone." And I just think he had that moment. He maybe had that same moment, kind of like when I have my office. And I'm not saying like I'm Elijah, of course, but I think we can all relate to that a little bit, where we have moments where we're just like we're like, "Oh my gosh, the world's ending. I'm all by myself. What am I gonna do?" And maybe sometimes we partner with things we shouldn't partner with, or we do things we shouldn't do. But I kind of wonder if in that moment where Elijah now is under this tree, and then he goes to the cave. First, he goes to the mountain, right? And there's a big wind and an earthquake and lightning. And then there's a still wind. And then he still goes into the cave. And God every time is like, "Elijah, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Hey, Emily." And and so, this is just this moment where I think Elijah's like, "It's all up to me. It's all up to me. I got to do it. I'm all by myself." And I was kind of like I was just struck by that because I look back in my life before I was a believer, and I would say that I had a great sense of yeshid, the Hebrew word, right? Just alone, solitude, being by yourself, and and there were a lot of moments when I look back at my sinful lifestyle. I can definitely say that those happened when I was by myself, when I was alone. And then even today as a believer, not even though I'm not living that sinful lifestyle, still the beliefs that I have that sometimes are negative. The moments of dread, the moments of fear, the moments of insecurity, the moments where I don't feel very confident about who I am. Those are also moments when I partner with the belief that I'm alone. So I started thinking about this mindset thing, right? And I went back, and since I've had this sort of discussion with God, I went back and I was like, wow, I'm unified with God. You are unified with God in every circumstance. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever circumstance it is. You may literally be backpacking out in the out country, like in whatever, in the middle of nowhere. And you could arguably say there is no other people around me. I have no company. I am alone. But you're unified with God. You're not alone. It's a mindset. And excuse me, I think that there's there is so much to be said for believing only what we can see in the natural versus believing what we can't see in the supernatural. We're not alone. We're unified. So, I'm not going to take this too much longer, but I wanted to give you guys some tools. And I wanted to call it the ABCs. The ABCs for breakthrough to change the mindset of believing that you're not alone, and that alone is a circumstance, not a belief. I'm sorry, it's a belief, not a circumstance. So the first thing for the ABCs was ask. That's where the A comes from, ask. And this really comes into just recognizing the emotion, right? Just kind of noticing, man, I'm just kind of feeling kind of funky. Melanie and I sometimes say, and we always ask each other, "How's your heart doing?" I'm like, "It's okay, just kind of funky, maybe not so good." Well, what's the funkiness? I mean, that's basically it. Is it sad, depressed, discouraged, frustrated, whatever, right? Whatever that funkiness is, that is not from the Lord for sure. And so the question really is, what is it? And or maybe there is, and listen, I'm just going to be real frank. Maybe there is a temptation, a desire, whether it's a desire to look at porn, whether it's a desire to gamble, whether it's a desire to drink, whatever, whatever that is, it's recognizing that fact of what is that desire that I'm wanting to do, and then asking God and say, Do I also feel alone? Do I feel alone in this moment? Do I feel by myself? I may be in a room, the door's closed, no one else is around me. Is it one of those moments? The next moment, the next thing in the ABCs is belief. That's the B. B for belief. And Wendy says this a lot. She goes, "What do I need to believe? What do I need to believe to have hope for a certain situation?" But what I'm saying, I want to rephrase this a little and say, what do I need to believe to not feel alone in this moment? What do I need to not feel alone in this moment? And this is, and we're going to go over kind of a few tools here, but that's that I am unified with God. That's that ashed Hebrew word, the only word in the Old Testament that's used to describe one for God. Ashed. Okay, a oneness. It's a unification. It's not just God by himself sitting on a pinnacle. He is with us. He's unified with us. And so the C is covenant. C for covenant. And I thought there were 5 scriptures that I wanted to give out to you guys to really that you can declare over yourself. If you notice, if you're in this moment where, first of all, you recognize what's going on, right? Yeah, I got this funkiness, or I don't know, this urge to sin, or whatever it is. Okay. And then what do I need to believe to not feel alone? And then see, what are the covenant declarations that I can speak over myself to believe that I'm not alone and I'm unified with God. So the first one was Deuteronomy 31:6. It says, "Be strong and be of good courage. Do not fear, do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you." It's a pretty common one. So I changed it into a declaration. Okay, I'm not creating my own theology, all right? So you can, if you don't like it, then make up your own. But what I said was, I'm strong and courageous. I'm not afraid of any circumstance because God is with me. So I just repeat that. Isaiah 41:10, "Fear not, I'm with you. Be not dismayed, for I'm your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So I changed that one into a declaration, and I said, God is with me. God strengthens me and holds me in his righteous hand. I wanted something in the gospel, so I went to Matthew 28:20, which says, "Teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of time." I changed that one. I changed that verse into a declaration that Jesus is always with me to the end of the age. And then the last one is Ephesians 2:19 through 22. And it's a little bit of a long one. And so I'm going to read kind of just verse 22, okay? And it says, "In him you are being built up with rest to form a fixed abode of God in the Spirit." And I just love this pass. I'm gonna read all because I think it's so good. "Therefore, you're no longer outsiders, but you now share citizenship with the saints, and you belong to God's household." You belong to God's household. Oh yeah, I will tomorrow. Give me 1 second. "You are built upon the foundation of apostles and prophets with Christ Jesus. In him, the whole structure is joined together harmoniously, and it continues to rise into a holy temple in the Lord." And then it goes on to verse 22. "In him, you are being built up with the rest to form a fixed abode of God in the Spirit." So I changed that last one. That was Ephesians 2:19 through 22. I changed that verse into a declaration for myself that says, I belong with God. I belong there. I'm unified, but I also belong to be unified with God. I am in him. I am a dwelling place for God, and his Spirit is fixed in me. Yeah. So, that's essentially it. Tomorrow, the verses were Matthew. If I'm going to go backwards, Ephesians 2:19 through 22, Matthew 28:20, Isaiah 41:10, and Deuteronomy 31:6. And basically, what I did is I just took those verses and I kind of made them into my own little declarations. So, you know, I sense that obviously, I think when the Lord puts things on our hearts, you know, I truly believe it's not just for me alone. I believe that there may be some of you out there who may be in a season or something where sometimes you realize like yeah, like I sort of struggle with being alone. I don't like it, and good things don't happen. Um, and so I just wanted to pray, and I also just wanted to release a word that I truly believe. There have been a lot of words that have been coming out about 2024 being an open door. Melinda and I were recently listening to a sermon with Bobby Connor, and he talks about that this is the year of the open door, and he talks about this is the season to build and to war. And there have been other words, from Chris Valentin about redemption and about halftime, and there have been a lot of words about this season coming up. But the sense that I'm getting is that if you feel like you've been in this wilderness, maybe of just being alone and just not knowing if like God is there, not maybe even saying like I don't even know if I'm seeing the fruit of my prayers. It's just testing my faith. I just want to encourage you that season has come into an end. That this is a year of victory. This is a year of breakthrough. This is a year of seeing just noticeable, tangible, just differences in emotional health, whether it's anxiety, panic, depression, fear, whatever it is, that this is a season where there is going to be truly just miraculous restoration of mental health happening. So much so that the only answer will be God. That people truly will say, just like, how did that happen? And almost your answer will be, I don't know, but God. That's the way it happened. And so I truly believe that this is a year, and this is a year also of tremendous blessings. This is a year of our it's the blessings of our faith. It's the blessings of our faith that are happening. And so I just love all you guys, and I just thank you, for listening, for all of you that are live and all of you that are going to watch later. Um, and just want to encourage you, maybe if you see other people that are alone, maybe just a simple word of just like God is with you. God is with you, and just sharing that word. Just a shed. The Hebrew word is shed. God is unified. He's unified with you, and He's with you. And those verses and those declarations. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity and taking all this time to listen. And we bless you, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful 2024. Love you guys. Bye bye.